Welcome back to Conversations with Boston School Psychologists, building safe and supportive schools one conversation at a time, where we spotlight the people, practices, and partnerships behind behavioral health in Boston Public Schools. I'm here with two school psychologists in Boston Public Schools, Sarah Hayden and Mike Sweeney Morrison. And today we'll be providing advice for first-year school psychologists. Sarah Hayden has been a school psychologist at BPS for 4 years after completing her internship with BPS. Her work focuses on early education, neurodevelopmental disorders, and parent engagement in the special education process. She enjoys Pilates, cooking, skiing, and the beach. Mike Sweeney Morrison has been a school psychologist at BPS for 4 years. His work focuses on neurodevelopmental disorders and mental health supports for queer students. He enjoys skiing, 2000s alt-rock music, Barry's boot camp, and spending time with his partner and corgi. Mike and Sarah, thank you so much for being here. I'm looking forward to diving in today to some practical tips for early career school psychologists. So let's get started with the first question. Yes, absolutely. Thanks for being here. And so, what does day one actually look like for first-year school psychologists? And what recommendations do you have for them starting out? Mike, let's start with you.
Oh man, where do I begin? There's always, especially if you're going into like a brand new district where you haven't like had the experience of interning at before, the questions you're asking is like, who do I report to? Where do I park? Where do I, if I need supplies, like where do I go to? And then you're never going to know, once you feel like you know everything, like just from my experience, I remember thinking like, I messed with the principal. I should be all good. She'll have my office ready when I'm there. No, none of that was ready because, it's a huge school. There's no way that everything's going to be like taken to consideration at once. So it was kind of like a whole month of kind of just being like, now I got my assessment kit. Here's my office space that I can use. I actually can't use this one. I have to use this one now because we have a reading specialist coming in. So
do I have a key?
Yes, do I have a key? Or I have a key. Does it go to the door?
Yeah. What door does it go to?
It took me a whole week just to get connected to the printer. I was asking like the special education secretary, can you print this out for me? Can you print this out for me? So yeah, there is a lot of logistics.
So like it's also hard too in BPS, which is like such a huge district where if there's something wrong, like for example, like I remember thinking like, for example, our district, like ID cards, there's like only one route you can go, but like not everybody knows the route in which you get an ID. So you have to figure out who knows the answer and then figure out how to do it. So like sometimes this person will be like, I'm trying to help you. I just don't know how to do it. So you're just going to have to be patient.
Yeah.
So what tips would you give first-year school psychologists starting out day one with these kinds of logistics and just getting to know the teachers? What would you say is some great tips for that?
I don't know, just like being like curious and patient.
Talk to everyone and anyone. Just start chatting, getting to know people.
Yeah.
Figure out where the front door is. Some of the buildings, the front door is actually not where it should be. It's on the side. It's in the back. There used to be a front door,
and now it's
years
a window.
ago, and now it goes nowhere.
Yeah. I find it like really awesome, like that first week of, or like even like the first month of like joining a new school and like getting to know your teachers and knowing like, I can really establish rapport with this teacher. I could probably do a lot of push in for that classroom if I need to. I feel like this teacher I can really rely on. We all have such like various like backgrounds and experiences and age groups and all of that stuff. But it's important that we all can work together to like come to a solution because it's for the students.
Absolutely. I think these are all great points. And I think the only thing I would add to that is when I did start out on that first day, I was just writing down the conversations I had and like, okay, this is this person. Just because you're going to meet so many people, especially if you're at multiple schools, you're going to have to meet so many different teachers and admin to the point where it's good to write everything down. Otherwise, the conversations might get mixed up. You might forget who's who. And so that brings brings us nicely in segueing into our second question of multiple schools, multiple caseloads at multiple schools. And Sarah, let's start with you. How do you tackle this without getting overwhelmed?
I will say I start out by spending as much time in the classrooms at both schools and operating on a basis of when I'm at this school, I'm at this school. Mm-hmm. And I try not to think about the other school. Obviously, if some things come up, I always want to be available because to that building, I am their person. To me, they are one of two. So just knowing, like, getting into that mindset of, like, I'm here and this is what I'm doing at this school, not whatever is happening at the other school. I'll tackle that when I'm there. Otherwise, you will get bogged down by thinking about everything that needs to be done at both, and you're just one person.
Despite what other people will tell you.
Despite what everyone else thinks. I think also using tools like notes, like we're talking about, keeping everything written down. I have copious amount of notes of just like to-do lists, get this done. And I go by my Google Calendar as well. Mm-hmm. Everything is on my Google Calendar. I think this segues me into like an organizational aspect. Google Calendar is my best friend. I color code things. People like to do different things for their organization. Mine's color coded based on school and based on like activity. That sounds fun. Yeah. Activity like meetings versus counseling sessions.
That's activity.
Yeah, exactly. And then I also have Excel sheets or Google Sheets, one for one school and another for another school. And I have my caseloads on those different sheets. So that way I know whether I'm testing, I can, do it yellow if I'm in the middle of testing, green when I'm done testing. And then also I can make sure that I'm putting in all the dates that I'm seeing all of the kids that I do see on my caseload. So that way everything is accounted for. And if I forget something, which inevitably I will, I can go back and be like, on this day, I saw this student and we talked about this, or this student needed a check-in and I was at my other school, but they contacted me. So let me loop in now that I'm back at this school to see how, he or she is doing.
Oh my God. So it's so funny that you say that. I started adding that at the end of my assessments in my tracker. It would be like the outcome section. It was like, agreed with findings, or there was some conflict and we had to come up with an alternative solution. And then 3 years later, I'm still at the same school. I see those kids up for a reeval. And I'm going, the plan that we made, was it? I mean, we're obviously doing annual reviews, but I could just look at the data from like then 3 years ago and then fresh data for 3 years and be like, oh, wow, like there's a significant change from the decision that we made at that time.
And something that BPS uses is Ed Plan. So we are able to officially log everything within a system. So it's not just our accountability of our organization, Google Sheets, Google Calendar, your notes. It's also a formal like process within BPS that we can say, yes, we're doing this. We did it on this day. And yes, we got this kid tested. We did this, which also just is good to like have everything just accounted for. And even more so when you're at two different schools. So you're not running around like a chicken with your head cut off.
Yeah. Absolutely. All great points. The only thing I would add to that is when it comes to splitting time between your schools, trying to do it as fairly as possible. You're naturally going to have one school that's just busier than the others. It's a little more higher referring. We all know which one is our busier school and our lighter school, but trying not to communicate that to be like, oh, I have to be at this school on your day because it's just so busy over there. Trying to truly be fair about it and giving your all as much as you possibly can to each school evenly. And when you do have those days where you just need to be at that other school on that school's day, just trying to clearly communicate, I'll make up for it at a later time to keep it fair, to keep it equal. And then when it comes to being overwhelmed with caseload, it can be really helpful to consolidate your evaluations, your reports. And so when you're in internship, you're learning best practice. You're testing so much more than you need to. You're over testing. When you come into your first year as a school psychologist, you need to figure out how to mix in what you've learned, the best practices, with a realistic evaluation battery that will help get you through the school year without being completely overwhelmed. And so you need to find that balance between efficiency and best practice. And so that would be a great segue into this next question, Mike.
I do have one more thing to add.
Sure. Go ahead.
Tim. I will also say something that's very important is transparency and communication with the school leaders at your schools. Just being like, hey, I need to go and do this because of X, Y, and Z. So that way it's not like, what is she doing? She's going here, she's going there. And then also to the teachers to like kind of walk them through, okay, I need to check in with this student and then I'm testing this student, but I want to be able to support you. So can I loop back in with you at this time today?
Yes, so they know they feel supported.
Yeah, so they feel supported even if it's not in the moment. And also so that way they know that, you are doing some other things, but that you do still want to support them when you're there.
Absolutely. Great points. And so, Mike, when it comes to selecting appropriate assessment batteries for your evaluations and things such as eligibility, things such as intervention planning when it comes to the IEP, what are some of your best recommendations for first-year school psychologists?
I think one of the best recommendations is I was trained on a lot of the Wechsler assessments, so I find that like if you're comfortable with one cognitive assessment and that's the cognitive assessment that you have that's available at your school, great. If the wheel ain't broken, don't fix it. And then I think as time goes on, dipping your toe in the water and like trying to try something new. But yeah.
Be comfortable trying new assessments instead of pigeonholing yourself into ones, because sometimes you might need to step outside your comfort zone and try a new assessment, practice it, but maybe it is like that, missing piece for that student's puzzle.
Right. And this is where you and I will talk sometimes if I get a kid where I'm like, it's a social emotional question, but they're struggling with anxiety. I'm just using this for example. I don't know, like what would be a good assessment? I've used the mask before. Like what other because I don't say I just haven't done a lot of those assessments. Like I just want to do the mask again, because I kind of want more information than what that provides. Ask you, what would you recommend?
Yeah. I think you just reminded me about this.
Of course.
What Mike prefers and what I prefer might be different too. So like
we talk about this with the Vineland and the
the
ABAS.
Like ABAS versus Vineland. Like why don't
I love the Vineland.
Yeah. Or the Brown versus the Connors versus the Brief. Like they're all executive functioning, ADHD, but he has his go-to and I have my go-to. And
is it so funny that we were like, oh, I really love the Brief. You're like, oh, really? The Connors is so much better.
Yeah.
It's funny because they both are like testing for the same thing. It's just different perspectives of getting to that point.
Yeah, I think we compromise and we both like the Brown.
I love these points. And the only thing I wanted to add is that when it came to my internship year, we were not narrowing the scope of our evaluation to solely the concerns. For whatever the student was, we were testing everything: behavior, executive functions, processing, reading, math, writing every single time. And when it comes to being a first-year school psychologist, as I had mentioned a little bit earlier, you don't want to get bogged down doing exactly what you did with the over-testing of internship. If that's what your internship looked like, you need to be able to narrow that scope of the evaluation to just specifically the concerns and testing in that area. And that will really help you streamline your evaluations. But Mike,
when you just going off of that point, it reminds me a lot about like how I was my first year when I wanted to really do right by these kids, and I guess really see a kid struggling. I can see like families tried multiple things, or it's a pattern that this child has experienced. throughout their entire education. So I want to go the distance and like really make sure I get the answer and then more of the answer. But at the end of the day, it's like I have other kids that I need to test, and then I'm up late on my computer at midnight, like like trying to type out the third subtest of this thing I did.
That might not be sustainable.
Oh no.
And what they taught in grad school is the perfect ideal, and we just need to shift that a little to be a little bit more realistic.
Absolutely. I think that context helps too. Where I was coming from was looking back at my first 3 months as a school psychologist. I was working every weekend, and I started to realize this is not sustainable. And so it's not that I didn't want to do all this testing, it's that I just had to be realistic. And so I started talking with other school psychologists. And this is a great tip for first-year school psychologists. Talk to the veteran school psychologists who've been around a long time. They know the tricks of the trade in order to streamline your evaluations, to get through them to the point where you're covering everything you need to in an ethical and legal way, but not overdoing it to the point where you're potentially burning out. And so you have to find that sweet spot where you're not bringing all this work home. And that's what I was doing before having those conversations. And so that is absolutely so important. One more point that I just absolutely love was adding both strengths and weaknesses to your reports. I know that has been a bigger emphasis and a bigger shift in the field as of late. But when I was in graduate school and then when I was writing reports, we really weren't as focused on that. We were more focused on just showing what the standard scores were and then justifying it through the eligibility. And one very specific meeting I had during my first year, it was a child with Down syndrome, and all of the scores were the lowest possible score. And my report was just basically showing that, when in reality, the student had made excellent growth from the start of the school year to the spring. And so for me to report only on these really low standard scores, the parent had told me during the meeting, this is disheartening, when in reality, the student had made excellent growth just in their own way, behaviorally, even though the standard scores didn't reflect that. So being able to talk with teachers, talk with parents and observations, being able to show the strengths in your report as well as the weaknesses is just so important for parents, for everyone, for the team.
We have a team of students at our school with multiple disabilities, and that was something I had to learn. Is I'd be doing these assessments on children with Down syndrome or Fragile X syndrome, and all of the scores would be very low. And I was like, I'm not just going to be like, oh, low. Like, no one wants to hear that. As I would learn is like I do a lot of like interactive assessments. Like when I was working as an ABA therapist for a while, being able to like sit with the kids, see how they interact with others, get to know them, talk with others. I find that I love my SLP, my OT, my PT. So I get a lot of great data from them as well. But yeah, I think it's really important because then parents don't want to hear that their kid's doing terrible.
No.
Even if their kid might be struggling, they don't hear, oh, they're all low. Like your kid's just low. Like
Exactly.
That's so disheartening.
I look at it as a sandwich, and
the feedback sandwich.
Yes,
Yeah.
but I have my Sarah sandwich.
Ooh, sour sandwich.
The deficit should just be the tomato or the lettuce. And you should really be talking about so many other things about the student. There should be like, okay, let's say the lettuce is the deficit, and maybe that also feeds into the scores. But also now we have meat, maybe we have cheese, and we have 2 breads or buns where we're also talking about other aspects of the student, what they like, what they don't like. Who are they besides this 15-page report that we are writing up? And I think I like to talk about that in my meetings, so that way when I am talking to the parents, they're hearing that. What else can we talk about that also is important, that is also a strength, or they grew in this area versus this area, and it might not be captured in full on those assessments.
Absolutely. Being able to tell a story through the scores is much more effective than just simply telling the scores. And for all the first-year school psychologists out there, you'll have so much practice at this over the years that you will naturally just get better at this over time, for sure. But speaking of being in these meetings, talking with parents, sometimes parents will disagree. And so we'll need to be defending our data in these potentially high tension conflict situations. And so, Sarah, would you like to talk about what you would do in these situations where there's contentious IEP meetings?
Yeah. Breathe.
Yeah.
Take a deep breath. At the end of the day, remember we're all here for the student. So there's a lot of emotions. Obviously, the parents are the parent of the student. Maybe you are just testing the student, or maybe you also have a really close relationship to this student because maybe we see them for counseling, or you just know them because you worked at the school for so long, and everyone's coming to the table wanting to support the student, but there may be other emotions that are charging that, but people's responses might be different. So I always remind myself to breathe, pause maybe before you speak.
Because it's not about you, too. It's not like,
no,
it's not like you did this, blah, blah, blah.
No.
It's like, I just disagree with
what we're saying because I'm coming from my point of view. Correct. The data also can speak for itself. If you come to the table for a contentious meeting with, one cognitive and one behavior scale, the data is not going to back you up as strong as if you had a cognitive and an academic, two different social emotional rating scales. Maybe one of them is done by the teacher, one of them is done by the parent, and if the child is of age, also done by the student. You also have unstructured and structured observations, whether that's in the classroom or outside the classroom. You have interviews with the parent, with the teacher, with the student. Just a real robust evaluation can hold up on its own, and then you can talk about that.
I think it's always good, and I think we talked about this earlier with towing that line. What would you feel comfortable, if you were describing yourself or your sibling or your friend, what would be enough for you to be comfortable with? I would not feel comfortable describing my friend, if I was doing their assessment with this is how they did on the waist, and here's how they did on the basque. Cool, that's all they are. And this is why I came up with this potential disability category. That's definitely not enough.
No.
Yeah, all great points. I wanted to add a story of my first year with a 5-year-old student who had autism, very high functioning, and was getting all the best marks in kindergarten. They didn't have grades, but basically her academics were through the roof. They were the best in the class, and she really no longer need special education. And that kindergarten teacher and I already had a great rapport. We had a very joking relationship. And so when I had asked her, do you have any concerns about the student? She's like, no. And she just immediately dismissed it. I didn't realize she was kind of half joking there and that there was actually some social concerns. So when we went to the IEP meeting to dismiss the student after I had done all this testing saying your child is amazing, through the roof academics, great scores across the board, no concerns from the teacher, we're going to have to exit from special education. The parent just breaks down crying. She just couldn't believe it because she didn't want the student to lose that support. And the teacher immediately pipes up wait a second, I have all these concerns. And so my biggest recommendation there is to make sure the full team is on board, especially if a contentious meeting is coming up, being able to make sure that the entire team is on the same page, especially when it comes to exiting a student from special education services. We all need to be on the same page in agreement about this. And then just lastly, parents are going to be contentious at times, but that doesn't mean that they don't want allies and people to collaborate. I was able to turn a parent who was very contentious with the school and become her greatest ally for her student, to the point where every IEP meeting moving forward, she wanted me at that meeting to continue to advocate for her son. And we as school psychologists are absolutely in the position. We are the student's greatest advocate. And so just wanted to add that as well.
I will also add making sure that we're coming as a team, so that way the parent isn't wait, who is my child working with here? I feel this way, but these two people that I thought were supposed to be on my child's team are also not talking to each other? What's going on? Because then that makes the parent feel really uncomfortable and uneasy with who they're trusting to be with their, their child. And then incorporating, making sure that if the contentious meeting may also be around, cultural differences, religious differences, any like language component that we can make sure that we're bringing. Like BPS is really amazing at always having an interpreter for the meeting. So that way we are coming to those meetings for the parents to be able to access them as they should.
Yeah, make
be
sure the
able
reports
to.
are translated for the meeting.
Yeah. And that way there's a clear conversation that can be done equally for everyone.
Absolutely. Great points. And as we're all saying, it is so important for everyone to be on the same page. And that is a nice segue when it comes to transitioning now to talking with teachers about MTSS and RTI. Before we even get into evaluations, talking about that intervention data, talking about interventions. And so what are your best tips when it comes to consulting with teachers about helping a student improve, whether it's academic or behaviorally? Go ahead, Mike.
So I try to, like, when a student comes to STS SST. I don't know why I almost forgot what it was called, SST.
Student support team, for those who might be unfamiliar.
A student support team, yes. I always want to make sure we're not just pulling the kid out of the classroom to do unnecessary testing for something that we could have solved in like 5 minutes. Like, for example, like I had multiple students my first year, a bunch of middle schoolers, all had like terrible organizational skills. And it turns out they all came from the same school and they all were taught a different system that our school was not using. And I was like, oh, like, this isn't an ADHD referral. Like this, I just need to run a group that lasts like 2 weeks on how to use an agenda, and done. And I prevented them from going through unnecessary testing or giving them a label that potentially they did not qualify for. And I think it's also empowering for teachers and other support staff to see like, oh, like I taught them this strategy, not just like teaching them like English or Spanish or science. It's like I taught them like a brain skill that they're going to now carry on for the rest of their life.
Yeah. I think like Z is the evaluation and we start at A. So like what else can we do before we're going to an evaluation, before we are, saying that this student may have a specific learning disability, but we haven't yet done anything to come to the table to help that student intervention wise. Okay, you have a concern. Good. We're seeing something. We're seeing a pattern.
Right.
What can we do about that? And can we bring that to the grade level CPT meetings? Can we start an intervention? Can it be, consistent? And can there be data taken with fidelity? And then can we bring it to SST where we get more eyes on it and we have further communication, collaboration, and then now, where is the student? Is the student making progress? And where do we go from here?
Absolutely. I would love to add, this was not my first year, but my second year as a school psychologist, I started diving into check-in, check-out because I noticed my schools were using it. It's one of the most common tier 2 behavior interventions you can use. And what I was learning about is it's all about rapport building. And I noticed some of these veteran teachers who've been in the school for so long and doing these interventions for so long, were just seeing it as a score sheet. So it was like, oh, they had a bad behavior day, just zeros across the board, and that's it. And it's like, wait a second. I had started to learn, like, not to just trust that my teachers always know what to do when it comes to providing these interventions. No, when it comes to behavior interventions, it's all about rapport building, relationship building. And so even when they are having bad days, it's talking about how can we improve for next time? And maybe it's not a 0, even though you want to give them a 0, but at least you are doing this well, like pointing out some of the positives and just trying, even if you have to be an actor or actress, to build that relationship, to build that skills, because ultimately ultimately it shows that you care and the students want to work for you when you have that good rapport and that good relationship. And I would say the same thing when it came to science of reading. It wasn't until my 6th year as a school psychologist, I had watched a professional development video from David Kilpatrick, and it just got me immediately hooked on the science of reading. I started learning more from the Reading League, a lot of resources there. I had read some of Kilpatrick's books and just a variety of different science of reading resources that I had learned over the years that really helped me become much better at providing solid intervention feedback. But what I'm trying to say is basically being able to really dive into these different areas, behavior, reading, math, and it will help so much in providing evidence-based interventions.
I also think a lot about the interventions that we recommend and we monitor and making sure they're accessible to what the bandwidth that our support staff have. I love self-monitoring checklists as a like executive functioning social emotional self-regulation tool. And for one student, I think I got a little too greedy on what we wanted to self-monitor and the expectations of it. And a lot of the teachers in the classroom were like, this is a lot to keep track of. Like, this is now more work for me. And also, I needed to figure out a way to sort of adapt it so that the teachers could access it. And then, so they're not feeling like my intervention's actually causing more work for them. Because that's what I'm trying not to do. I'm not trying to give them more work.
No. I think
this is a rating scale. I need that.
when you have the relationships with the teachers, building that from the first day when you're at a new school, when it's your first year, this is when that really comes back to help you, because a teacher could come to you and say, I have a lot of students in my class that are really struggling with X or Y. Let's say it's, social, emotional, and self-regulation. They are really distracted, or they have a lot of kids who are breaking down very quickly. They don't know how to self-cope.
Right.
Okay, cool. Let me, come in and let me run a tier 1 whole class lesson on something within the teacher's concerns.
Yeah.
And then now I got a little bit of buy-in from the teacher. Like, I'm coming and I'm doing this with you in your class. And now what can we go from there? What intervention can we use for the specific students that teacher had in mind? And that really comes down to like that relationship that you have with those teachers, and
but also the students too.
Yeah.
Like, I
get to be with the kids.
I unfortunately right now my testing caseload is really large, so I'm mostly in my office. Well, when I first got to my school, I was always like just kind of popping in the classroom, kind of seeing what the teachers were teaching, seeing how they were teaching it. And then also like getting to know the students, so then they see me. So like, but then the teachers also like, oh, this dude is actually coming in here, is actually curious, is actually knows what's going on. Because especially if you're between multiple schools, it might, or like you're just in a big school and you're not seen so often, I'm sure teachers can sometimes feel like, oh, like you don't really know what's going on. Like, which also might be true. Like, and that's why showing up and building those relationships and just like being a familiar face that you can vibe with is like kind of like the bare minimum to have a good like intervention.
Yeah. Because then when you are really busy with all of those evals, they know, okay, they're really busy right now, but I know that they, they are around, they are here. And then the kids can be like, oh my gosh, I've seen you before. Oh, Miss Sarah, what are you doing? And then it just makes everything awesome.
That's fine.
Absolutely. I loved how you were thinking also about how busy teachers are. We don't want to overwhelm the teachers. And so I'm the same way. I would give them like a frequency chart that would be very easy to just tally of the most concerning behavior, or maybe 2 of the most concerning behaviors, but nothing to the point where it's completely overwhelming or undoable. And so that is super important, and a nice segue into our last question, which is, how do school psychologists maintain boundaries, navigate ethical dilemmas, and find support or mentorship in their careers, early in their careers, sorry. So Sarah, why don't we start with you?
Well, first off, I think knowing who your like go-to people are, this person over here is one of my go-to people. And we have a few other psychs that started the same year as us in BPS.
And some of us went to the same grad school.
Some of them even went to the same grad school. That way you have a group that you can just go to talk, to consult, to vent. That like venting is just really cathartic a lot because there aren't that many people in your building that know what your day-to-day is like. You are, in most cases, the only school psychologist in that building. So you don't have, that other person that knows what you're going through. Right. That being said, you also, you do want to have people within your building that you feel comfortable and safe going to. Maybe you have like a lunch group. Maybe you go for a walk during lunch. Maybe you get outside during lunch, even if it's just for a few minutes.
Yeah.
Just having those people in your school, and then the larger group that you like that know what you are doing, know your job. That you can go get drinks with after school or whatnot, or go, take a workout class together, have a housewarming party to go to. He just had a birthday party. I was out of town. And
she didn't want to go.
And then also, taking advantage of working in a big district. We have so many school psychologists. Thank goodness.
Thank God.
Because there are so many veterans that I can go to. When I was a first year, when, now here I am. And in a few years, I'm sure I'll go out to people who have been here longer than me, still asking, what did you do in this case? Whether you're a first year or fifth or 10th, like you're still going to be growing and learning. And maybe you will have a situation that you've never come across. And being comfortable with the people that you work with to go to others and talk and ask questions. I also think that a lot of us are empaths, and I think that we all lead with our heart first. And so, there's that boundary of we don't want to take work home, but how do you also not take...
But also a lot of people take work home. So you're like, oh, you didn't take work home? And then there's like almost like this little sense of like, oh, like, am I not doing enough? At least for my first year. I was like, oh, I need to
be doing more, because if he's taking it home, should I be taking it home? Am I doing something wrong?
Yeah.
But then also, what are you doing with those feelings of like suddenly that kid that you're doing a test on is a real kid instead of a practice test during grad school. Suddenly,
and he just told you some really messed up thing that's going on in his life.
I was going to say, in counseling, suddenly you are that person that's doing that counseling, and kids are sharing things with you, and your first year, you're going to feel a lot of that. And how do you deal with that? But that's where I think you need to figure out. Mike loves berries. I love doing Pilates. We love skiing, cooking. That's where I think as a first year school psychologist, you need to figure out, okay, how am I going to not just have the physical boundaries of that work, but those emotional boundaries of where do I put my feelings when I'm home?
Yeah,
absolutely. Thank you so much for your amazing insight to all of these questions. I really appreciate your time. And I would love to end on something fun, such as a fun fact. And so, Sarah, would you like to start with adding a quick fun fact before we end?
I would love to. I thought long and hard about my fun fact. And my fun fact is that I have a obsession with dachshunds, the little dogs. I myself am short and petite, and they are my spiritual animal. I don't own one, but I have pajamas, blankets, coffee cups, a keychain on my backpack. The kids know that I love dachshunds, but I do not have one. Mike?
And my fun fact is when I was a teenager, I became so obsessed with corgis, and I always wanted one. And I tried adopting one at one point. It didn't happen because my ex was like, we can't have a dog. And I really wanted a corgi, but I was like, I'm just going to hold off on it. And then 3 years ago, a corgi just kind of popped on my lap, and now I have a corgi.
One day, my fun fact will actually be a fact. I own a dachshund. 2, actually.
Yeah, 2. Oh, yeah. I'm going to get another corgi, too.
Love those fun facts. And of course, we were talking before about how my nephew is getting a corgi. And so I will be entering into that world through him, which I'm very excited about. I personally have 6 different pets, 4 cats and 2 bunnies. And one of them is a munchkin cat. And so kind of like the cat version of what was it called? A Dachshund? Am I saying it right?
Dachshund. Yeah, Dachshund, Dachshund.
Dachshund. Okay. I don't want to mess up the pronunciation. He's actually right there. And I'm thinking of just bringing him in real quick for the end of the episode. Give me one second. He hates being picked up, so I'm not sure how he's going to do here, but he loves attention. So
we'll give him a lot of attention.
Yes, a lot of attention.
We can give him positive reinforcement.
Positive.
Pause. PAWS.
Oh, no. Oh my goodness.
Oh,
oh, that's a gold baby.
We're both in gold.
That's a good gold baby.
Oh, he's so cute.
Yeah. Did you see those little paws?
Yeah, they were like...
And the ass factor just like...
yeah, he was like, get me. He hates being carried or picked up, so he's like, get me down. Oh my gosh. Well, this has been so much fun. Sarah and Mike, thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you to the listener for listening to Conversations with Boston School Psychologists, building safe and supportive schools one conversation at a time. Please follow us on our socials, Boston School Psychs, and visit our website, bostonschoolpsychs.com, to learn more about our work. Join our next conversation to learn more about resources and tips for creating safe and supportive schools. Thank you.